The call came on a Thursday afternoon while I was sorting through boxes in my garage. Retirement had given me too much time to organize things that didn't need organizing. My daughter's voice was shaking. "Mom, it's Tyler. He's been arrested." I stopped moving. Tyler was my grandson. 17 years old. Good kid, quiet, spent most of his time reading or playing video games in his room. Arrested for what? Armed robbery. They're saying he held up a convenience store with 2 other boys. There's video footage, Mom. The police say it's definitely him. I sat down on an old garden chair, dust rising around me. Where is he now? County jail. They're charging him as an adult because someone got hurt. The clerk, he's in the hospital. Her voice broke. Tyler's looking at 10 years. Maybe more. I'd raised my daughter alone after her father left when she was 5. Worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. When Tyler was born, I was there in the delivery room, cut the umbilical cord myself. His father was deployed overseas, came back different, angry. The marriage didn't last. So once again it was the 3 of us. Me, my daughter Sarah, and Tyler. But Tyler wasn't a criminal. He was the kid who cried when we had to put the dog down last year. The one who helped elderly Mrs. Chun carry her groceries every Sunday. Something about this didn't add up. "I'm coming over," I said. Sarah's apartment was small, cluttered with the chaos of a single mother working 2 jobs just like I had. She opened the door with red eyes and a crumpled tissue in her hand. "They won't let me see him until tomorrow," she said. "The public defender called. Wants me to convince Tyler to take a plea deal. 7 years instead of 10. Has Tyler said anything? He keeps saying he didn't do it. But Mom, the video. They showed me a screenshot. It looks exactly like him. Same jacket, same shoes, same build. The other 2 boys already confessed. They're saying Tyler was the one with the gun." I thought about the Tyler I knew. The boy who'd spent the last 3 months volunteering at the public library for his school community service requirement. Who came home excited because the head librarian, Mr. Patterson, had given him his own set of keys to the back office so he could help with after-hours inventory. "Can I see the screenshot?" Sarah pulled up her phone, showed me the image the police had sent. A figure in a black hoodie, face partially visible, holding what looked like a handgun. The build was right. The jacket was Tyler's. I'd bought it for him last Christmas. But something in the stance looked wrong. Tyler had a habit of slouching to his left because of an old skateboard injury. This person stood straight. What time did this happen? Tuesday night. Around 9:30. I pulled out my own phone, opened my calendar. Tuesday night. I'd been at my book club until 10, but before that, Tyler was with me Tuesday night, I said slowly. From 7 until almost 9:45. We were at the library. Sarah looked up. "What?" "I brought him dinner because you were working late." He was helping Mr. Patterson reorganize the history section. I sat in the reading area doing a crossword puzzle while he worked. We didn't leave until 9:45. I dropped him off here at 10. But the robbery was at 9:30. How? That's when it clicked. His jacket. Where's his jacket? Sarah went to Tyler's room, came back empty-handed. It's not here. He left it at the library Monday afternoon. I remember because he called me asking if I could pick it up for him. Mr. Patterson said he'd keep it in the back office. Sarah's face went pale. Someone else wore his jacket. Someone who had access to the back office. Someone who knew exactly what Tyler looked like. I stood up. I need to talk to Mr. Patterson. And I need to see Tyler tomorrow. Don't let him take any plea deal until I do. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that video. About Tyler's jacket, about who else had keys to that back office. I'd spent 35 years as a research librarian before retiring. I knew how to find information, how to connect dots that seemed unrelated. By morning I'd made a decision. I was going to prove Tyler didn't rob that store. And I had a pretty good idea where to start looking. The county jail smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. I'd never been inside one before. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as a guard led Sarah and me through a series of locked doors that clanged shut behind us with a finality that made my stomach turn. They brought Tyler out in an orange jumpsuit that was too big for him. His hands were cuffed in front of his body. When he saw us, his face crumpled. "Grandma. Mom. I swear I didn't do it. We sat across from him at a metal table bolted to the floor. Sarah reached for his hands, but the guard shook his head. No touching. Tell me about Tuesday night, I said. Everything you remember. Tyler's voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying. I was at the library helping Mr. Patterson. You brought me that sandwich around 7:30, remember? The turkey one from the deli. I remember. What time did you leave? Not until almost 10. We were finishing up the history section. Mr. Patterson wanted to get it done before Wednesday because there was some big donation coming in. He looked at his mother. You picked me up at 10. You were still in your work uniform. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I got you at exactly 10:03. I remember because my shift ended at 10 and I was checking the time. So you have an alibi, I said. But someone robbed that store wearing your jacket. Who else knew where you kept it? Tyler thought for a moment. Mr. Patterson, obviously. And Marcus. He's the other volunteer who works Monday and Wednesday nights. He saw me leave it there Monday. Tell me about Marcus. Marcus Webb. He's 19, I think. Maybe 20. Started volunteering like 2 months ago. Seemed cool at first. We'd talk about video games and stuff. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. But lately he'd been asking weird questions. Like, where did I live, what kind of car my mom drove, did we have a security system? I thought he was just making conversation. My pulse quickened. What does Marcus look like? About my height. Brown hair. He's got this small tattoo on his wrist like a star or something. Sarah and I locked eyes. We were both thinking the same thing. Tyler, did Marcus know you had keys to the back office? Yeah. Mr. Patterson gave both of us keys, so we could help with inventory when the library was closed. Marcus thought it was cool. Said it made us official staff or whatever. The guard called time. 5 more minutes. I leaned forward. Tyler, listen to me carefully. Do not take the plea deal. Do you understand? No matter what anyone tells you. But Grandma, they have video. They have the gun with my fingerprints on it. What? Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. Tyler looked down. The public defender told me this morning. They found the gun in a dumpster near my school. It has my fingerprints on it. I don't understand how. I've never touched a gun in my life. But I understood. I understood perfectly. Tyler, did Marcus ever ask you to hold something for him? A bag, a package, anything? Tyler's face went white. Last week, he had this black case. Said it was camera equipment for a photography class. Asked if I could put it in the back office for a few days because he didn't have room in his car. I didn't even open it. Just put it on the shelf. Did you touch the case? Yeah, to move it. It was heavier than I thought. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. Oh God. Was there a gun in there? The guard stood up. Time's up. As they led Tyler away, he looked back at us with terrified eyes. Grandma, what do I do? You trust me, I said. I'm going to fix this. Outside in the parking lot, Sarah grabbed my arm. Mom, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Marcus Webb set Tyler up. Used his jacket, planted his fingerprints, made sure Tyler would be the perfect suspect. I pulled out my phone. And I'm thinking we need to find out everything we can about Marcus Webb before he disappears. Should we call the police? I thought about Tyler's public defender who'd already decided he was guilty. About how quickly everyone had accepted that a 17-year-old honor student with no criminal record had suddenly decided to rob a convenience store. Not yet, I said. First we need proof. Real proof. And I know exactly where to start. I'd spent 35 years researching. It was time to put those skills to use. The public library opened at 9 on Friday mornings. I was waiting outside at 8:45, watching the staff arrive through the glass doors. Mr. Patterson showed up at 8:50, coffee in one hand, briefcase in the other. He'd worked at this library for over 20 years. We'd been colleagues once back before I retired. Diane. He looked surprised to see me. I heard about Tyler. Terrible situation. I still can't believe it. Can we talk inside? Privately. His office was exactly as I remembered it. Books stacked everywhere, papers covering every surface, an old desktop computer that probably should have been replaced 5 years ago. He closed the door behind us. Robert, I need to know everything about Marcus Webb. He sat down heavily in his chair. Marcus. Good volunteer. Punctual hard worker. Why? Because I think he robbed that convenience store wearing Tyler's jacket. Mr. Patterson's face went pale. That's a serious accusation. Tyler was here with me Tuesday night until 9:45. The robbery happened at 9:30. It's physically impossible for him to have done it. I leaned forward. But Marcus had access to Tyler's jacket. He had keys to the back office. And according to Tyler, he'd been asking suspicious questions. I don't know what to say. Marcus seemed like such a polite young man. Tell me how he started volunteering here. Mr. Patterson pulled up a file on his computer. He applied in September. Said he was interested in library science, wanted to get some experience. His references checked out. Background check was clean. What address did he put on his application? He read off an address on the north side of town. I wrote it down, but something told me Marcus Webb wouldn't be there anymore. People like him didn't stay in one place long. Has he been here since Tuesday? No, actually. He called Wednesday morning, said he was sick. Hasn't been back since. Mr. Patterson looked worried now. You really think he did this? I think he set Tyler up. And I think Tyler wasn't the first person he's done this to. I stood up. I need copies of everything you have on Marcus. Application, references, emergency contacts. Everything. Diane, I can't just hand over personnel files. Robert. I looked him straight in the eye. My grandson is sitting in jail right now facing 10 years for something he didn't do. A boy you've known since he was volunteering for his school project. A good kid who trusted the wrong person. Please. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then he started printing. 20 minutes later, I left with a folder full of documents. In my car, I spread everything out on the passenger seat. Marcus Webb's application, his background check, copies of his references, his emergency contact information. The address was an apartment complex on the north side. The emergency contact was listed as his mother, Linda Webb, with a phone number that had a local area code. The references were from 2 previous volunteer positions, one at a community center, one at a youth sports league. I called the first reference. The phone rang 4 times before someone picked up. Riverside Community Center. This is Angela. Hi. I'm calling about a reference for Marcus Webb. He listed your organization on a volunteer application. There was a pause. Marcus Webb? Tall guy, brown hair, early 20s. That's him. Yeah, he volunteered here about a year ago. Lasted maybe 2 months before we had to let him go. My heart started beating faster. Can I ask why? There were some complaints from other volunteers. Money went missing from a few lockers. Nothing we could prove, but after Marcus stopped coming around, the thefts stopped too. She sighed. I probably should have mentioned that when the library called for a reference, but he seemed like he was just going through a rough patch. I didn't want to ruin his chances. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called the second reference. The Youth Sports League. Same story. Marcus had volunteered, things had gone missing, they'd asked him to leave. So Marcus Webb had a pattern. He'd infiltrate organizations as a volunteer, gain people's trust, then steal from them. But this was different. This wasn't petty theft. This was armed robbery. This was setting up a 17-year-old kid to take the fall. I drove to the address on the application. The apartment complex was run down, paint peeling, half the mailboxes hanging open. I knocked on apartment 4B. No answer. I tried the manager's office. The manager was a tired-looking woman in her 50s, smoking a cigarette despite the no smoking sign on her own door. Marcus Webb? Yeah, he cleared out Wednesday morning. Paid through the end of the month but took all his stuff and left. Didn't say where he was going. Did he leave anything behind? Anything at all. She stubbed out her cigarette. Just trash. I haven't cleaned it out yet if you want to look. The apartment was small and empty. Fast food containers in the kitchen, a few pieces of junk mail on the counter. I went through everything carefully, wearing the disposable gloves I'd brought from home. Old habit from my library days when we'd handle damaged books. In the bedroom closet I found it. A receipt from a storage facility dated 3 weeks ago. Unit 237. The storage place was on the other side of town. I stood there holding that receipt, my hands shaking slightly. This was it. This was the thread that would unravel everything. But I couldn't go to the police yet. They'd already decided Tyler was guilty. I needed more than a receipt and a suspicion. I needed to know what was in that storage unit. Sarah called as I was driving home. Mom, the public defender keeps pressuring Tyler to take the plea. She says the evidence is overwhelming. Tell her we need more time. Tell her we're working on something. What are we working on? I looked at the receipt on my passenger seat. A way to prove Tyler's innocent. But Sarah, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? There was a long pause. Then she said, You've never let me down before. I'm not starting now. The storage facility was called Secure Space Storage, one of those big warehouse-style places with rows of orange metal doors and security cameras everywhere. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, watching people come and go. Everyone had to punch in a code at the gate to get in. I couldn't just walk up and ask to see what was in Unit 237. That wasn't how this worked. But I'd spent 3 decades helping people find information they thought was impossible to find. Research was research, whether it was tracking down a rare book or tracking down evidence. I drove home and opened my laptop. Started with the storage facility's website. They had online account management, which meant there was a database somewhere with customer information. I wasn't going to hack anything, I wasn't that kind of person and wouldn't know how anyway, but I could look for other ways in. I called the storage facility's customer service line. Secure Space Storage, this is Brenda. How can I help you? I put on my most confused elderly woman voice. It wasn't hard. I was 72 years old. Oh, hello dear. My grandson Marcus rented a unit there, Unit 237 I think, but he's traveling overseas for work and asked me to check on something for him. Problem is, he forgot to give me the gate code. I can help you with that. What's the last name on the account? Webb. Marcus Webb. I heard typing. Then a pause. Ma'am, I'm showing that Unit 237 is registered to a Michael Warren, not Marcus Webb. Michael Warren. Another fake name. My suspicion was right. Oh goodness, I must have written it down wrong. He's so forgetful, that boy. Could you tell me what unit Marcus Webb has? He definitely said he rented one last month. More typing. I'm not showing any current accounts under that name. Are you sure it was our facility? Maybe he used his middle name? Marcus. Oh, what was it? Michael. Marcus Michael. Would that help? Ma'am, I really can't give out customer information over the phone. If your grandson needs access, he'll need to come in with his ID and his rental agreement. I thanked her and hung up. So Marcus had rented the unit under the name Michael Warren. Another alias. But now I had a name that was connected to that specific unit. I spent the next hour searching online for Michael Warren. Dozens of results came up, none of them useful. Too common a name. But then I tried something else. I searched for Michael Warren and Marcus Webb together, looking for any connection. Nothing. I sat back frustrated. Then I remembered something Tyler had said. The tattoo. A small star on Marcus's left wrist. It was distinctive. Maybe someone else had noticed it. I called the Riverside Community Center back. Asked for Angela. This is Diane again. I called earlier about Marcus Webb. I have a strange question. Did Marcus have any tattoos? Oh yeah, that little star on his wrist. He said it was for good luck or something. Why? Just confirming it's the same person. Thank you. So the tattoo was real. That was good. Physical identifiers were harder to fake than names. I opened a new search, looking for arrest records, court documents, anything that might connect to someone with that description. 2 hours later I found it. An arrest record from 3 years ago in a county 2 hours north. Michael James Warren, age 22 at the time, arrested for theft. Charges were eventually dropped due to insufficient evidence. But the booking photo was there. It was him. Marcus Webb. Michael Warren. Same face, same build. And visible in the photo on his left wrist was the star tattoo. My hands were shaking as I printed the document. This was proof that Marcus had been using multiple identities. Proof that he had a criminal history. But it still wasn't enough to free Tyler. I needed to connect him directly to the robbery. Sarah called that evening. Mom, I saw Tyler again today. He's not doing well. Some of the other inmates are giving him trouble. He's scared. My chest tightened. Tyler was just a kid. A skinny 17-year-old who'd probably never been in a fight in his life. Tell him to keep his head down. Stay quiet. Don't engage with anyone. That's what I said, but Mom, how much longer? His court date is in 3 weeks. The public defender says if he doesn't take the plea by Monday, it's off the table. 3 weeks. I looked at the documents spread across my kitchen table. The receipt for the storage unit. The arrest record. The printouts from Marcus's volunteer applications. I'm going to the storage facility tomorrow, I said. What? Mom, you can't break into a storage unit. I'm not breaking in. I'm just going to look around. See if I can find anything useful. That's crazy. You could get arrested. Tyler's already arrested for something he didn't do. I'm not going to sit here and let him go to prison because everyone else decided he was guilty. I kept my voice calm. Sarah, I raised you by myself. Put you through college working 2 jobs. I'm not some helpless old woman. I know what I'm doing. She was quiet for a moment. Please be careful. I'm always careful. After we hung up, I made a list of everything I'd need. My phone with a good camera. A flashlight. Notepad and pen. Comfortable shoes in case I needed to walk quickly. I felt ridiculous planning this out like some kind of detective, but this was real. This was Tyler's life. I thought about calling the police, telling them what I'd found. But I already knew how that conversation would go. They'd thank me politely and tell me they had all the evidence they needed. The video footage. The gun with Tyler's fingerprints. The 2 other boys who'd already confessed and named Tyler as the one with the weapon. No one was going to believe a 72-year-old grandmother who thought she'd figured out the real story. Not without concrete proof. Not without something they couldn't ignore. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about Tyler in that jail, scared and alone. Kept thinking about Marcus Webb or Michael Warren or whoever he really was out there somewhere. Free. Probably already planning his next setup. His next victim. By morning I'd made up my mind. I was going to that storage facility. And I was going to find whatever Marcus was hiding there. Even if I had to bend a few rules to do it. I arrived at Secure Space Storage at 2 in the afternoon on Saturday. The parking lot was moderately busy. People loading and unloading boxes from their cars. I sat for a while watching the pattern. Every customer punched in a code at the gate, drove through, parked near their unit. Some stayed 5 minutes, others stayed an hour. I needed to get inside, but I couldn't just follow someone through the gate. The cameras would catch that. I needed a legitimate reason to be there. Then I saw her. An elderly woman struggling with a large box near Unit 112. She'd set it down to rest, breathing hard. I grabbed my purse and walked over. Excuse me, can I help you with that? She looked up, grateful. Oh, would you? My daughter was supposed to help me today, but she had to work. I'm just trying to get some of my late husband's things into storage. I'm happy to help. I'm Diane. Margaret. Thank you so much. I helped Margaret carry 3 boxes from her car to her unit. She talked the whole time about her husband, about downsizing from their house to an apartment, about how overwhelming it all was. I listened, nodded, carried boxes. And while we worked, I paid attention to the layout. The units were organized in rows. The 100s were near the front. The 200s would be farther back. Security cameras were positioned at intervals, but there were blind spots. Places where the angles didn't quite cover. After we finished, Margaret insisted on giving me $20 for helping. I refused, but she pressed it into my hand anyway. At least let me give you the gate code so you don't have to wait next time you visit, she said. It's 4739. I thanked her, walked back to my car, and sat there for another 20 minutes. Then I drove through the gate using the code Margaret had given me. No alarms went off. No security guards appeared. I was just another customer accessing my storage unit. I parked near the 200 row and got out. Unit 237 was toward the back, around a corner where the security camera coverage was thinner. The unit had a standard padlock on it. I walked past it once, casually, not stopping. Just a woman checking unit numbers, looking for her own. There was no way I could open that lock. Even if I knew how to pick locks, which I didn't, the cameras would eventually catch me. I needed another approach. I walked back to my car and sat there thinking. Then I called Sarah. Do you remember Tyler mentioning any friends Marcus had? Anyone he talked about? Sarah was quiet for a moment. He mentioned once that Marcus had a girlfriend. Some girl named Jessica, I think. Why? Did he say anything else about her? Just that Marcus was always texting her during their volunteer shifts. Tyler thought it was rude but didn't say anything. A girlfriend. That was something. I thanked Sarah and hung up, then pulled out Marcus's volunteer application again. Under emergency contacts he'd listed his mother, Linda Webb. But there was no girlfriend listed. Of course there wasn't. He probably lied to her too. I thought about this for a while. Then I had an idea. It was risky, maybe even reckless, but I was running out of time and options. I called the storage facility's customer service line again. Different voice this time, a young man. Hi, my boyfriend Michael Warren rents unit 237 there. We had a fight and he changed the locks on me. I let my voice shake a little. All my stuff is in there. My clothes, my laptop, everything. I just need to get my things out. I'm sorry, ma'am, but if your name isn't on the rental agreement, I can't let you access the unit. Please. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want my belongings. Can't you just cut the lock off and let me get my stuff? I'll pay for a new lock. We can't do that without the primary renter's authorization. If he won't let you access your belongings, you might need to get law enforcement involved. I thanked him and hung up. Law enforcement. That was actually not a bad idea, but not in the way he meant. I sat in my car thinking about this from every angle. I couldn't break in. I couldn't convince the facility to let me in. But maybe I didn't need to get inside. Maybe I just needed to know what was in there. I pulled out my phone and searched for private investigators in the area. Found one with decent reviews, a woman named Karen Chun who specialized in infidelity cases and background checks. Her website said she was discreet and thorough. I called her office. She answered on the third ring. Chun Investigations. Miss Chun, my name is Diane Fletcher. I need help with something unusual. I explained the situation. Not everything, just enough. My grandson had been set up for armed robbery by someone using a fake name. That person had a storage unit that might contain evidence. I needed to know what was in it. Mrs. Fletcher, I can't help you break into a storage unit. That's illegal. I'm not asking you to break in. I'm asking if there's any legal way to find out what's inside. She was quiet for a moment. If this person really did set up your grandson, you should go to the police. The police think my grandson is guilty. They have video, fingerprints, eyewitnesses. They're not going to investigate another suspect based on my hunch. My voice cracked a little. Please. He's 17 years old. He's a good kid. And he's going to prison for something he didn't do unless I can prove otherwise. Another pause. Then Karen said, send me everything you have. The storage unit information, the names he's used, the arrest record, all of it. Let me see what I can find. I spent the next hour in the storage facility parking lot, forwarding documents to Karen's email. The volunteer applications, the arrest record, the receipt, everything. Then I drove home, exhausted and frustrated. That evening, Tyler called from jail. He was allowed one phone call a week and he always called me. Grandma, the public defender, came by again. She says if I don't take the plea by Monday, I'm going to trial. And if I go to trial, I'm looking at 15 years instead of 7. Tyler, do you trust me? Yes. Then don't take the plea. I'm working on something. Just hold on a little longer. It's getting harder in here. There's this guy who keeps saying I'm the new kid, that I need to prove myself. I don't even know what that means. My hands clenched around the phone. Stay away from him. Don't prove anything. Just keep your head down and stay safe. Can you do that for me? I'll try. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with all my documents spread out in front of me. 3 weeks until his court date. Maybe less if the public defender forced the issue. And I still didn't have enough proof. Karen Chan called Sunday morning. Mrs. Fletcher, I did some digging. Your instincts are right. This Marcus Webb or Michael Warren has been running this scam for at least 5 years that I can trace. Different cities, different names, always the same pattern. Can you prove it? I found 3 other cases similar to your grandson's. Young people charged with crimes they claim they didn't commit. In each case, there was someone in their life who fit Marcus's description. Someone who disappeared right after the arrest. We need to find him. We need to find where he is now. I'm working on it. But Mrs. Fletcher, there's something else. That storage unit? I contacted a friend who works in law enforcement. If we can get probable cause, we might be able to get a warrant to search it. For the first time in days, I felt hope. Karen Chan met me at a coffee shop Monday morning. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with short black hair and sharp eyes that reminded me of the reference librarians I used to work with. The ones who could spot a research problem from across the room. She spread a folder out on the table between us. Inside were printouts, photographs, case summaries. I found 5 cases total that matched the pattern, she said, keeping her voice low. Your grandson is the most recent. Before him, there was a girl in Riverside named Ashley Morrison. Before that, a guy named Derek Chun, no relation to me. Then going back 3 years, 2 more. Different cities, different names for the perpetrator, but always the same method. I looked through the documents. Each case was almost identical. Young person with no criminal record suddenly arrested for a serious crime. Evidence that seemed overwhelming. A friend or boyfriend who disappeared. All of them had taken plea deals or been convicted. Did any of them mention a storage unit? No, but here's what's interesting. In 3 of the 5 cases, stolen items turned up in the defendants' homes or cars. Items they swore they'd never seen before. Jewelry, electronics, cash. Just enough to make them look guilty. He planted evidence. That's what I think. And if he's been doing this for 5 years, he's got to be storing the stolen goods somewhere before he plants them. Karen tapped the storage unit receipt. My guess? This is his warehouse. This is where he keeps everything before he sets someone up. Can we get a warrant? That's the tricky part. We need probable cause, and we need a detective who's willing to listen. Most cops are going to see a grandmother with a theory and dismiss it. She pulled out another document. But I have a contact. Detective Lisa Morrison. She's with the county sheriff's department, handles property crimes. She's good, and she actually listens. Will she meet with us? Already set it up. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I felt something loosen in my chest. Progress. Finally, actual progress. That afternoon I visited Tyler again. He looked thinner, more tired. There was a new bruise on his jaw. What happened to your face? Nothing. I'm fine. Tyler. He looked down. The guy I told you about. He pushed me in the lunch line yesterday. I didn't fight back just like you said, but he hit me anyway. The guards broke it up. I wanted to cry. Wanted to scream. Wanted to pull him out of that place right now. But I kept my voice steady. Just a little longer. We have new evidence. We're meeting with a detective tomorrow. His eyes met mine. Hope and fear mixed together. You really think this is going to work? I know it is. But I didn't know. Not really. I was just a 72-year-old retired librarian who'd spent too many years helping people find information. This was different. This was Tyler's life. And I was terrified of failing him. Detective Lisa Morrison's office was in the county courthouse, a gray building downtown with metal detectors at the entrance. Karen and I waited in a small conference room until Morrison arrived. She was in her late 40s, wearing jeans and a blazer with her badge clipped to her belt. She shook both our hands and sat down across from us. Karen says you have information about a pattern of wrongful convictions. I'd prepared for this moment. Brought copies of everything. The 5 cases Karen had found. The documentation on Marcus Webb's various identities. The arrest record. The storage unit receipt. I laid it all out methodically, the way I used to organize research materials for library patrons. Morrison listened without interrupting. Took notes. Asked a few questions. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. This is thorough work. Impressively thorough. Thank you. But I need to be honest with you, Mrs. Fletcher. Your grandson's case has video evidence, fingerprints, and 2 eyewitnesses who've already confessed. That's a strong case. The video shows someone in Tyler's jacket, not Tyler. The fingerprints were planted. The witnesses are lying or mistaken. Maybe. But convincing a judge to issue a search warrant based on this. She gestured at the documents. It's going to be difficult. We'd need something more concrete. My heart sank. What else do you need? Morrison thought for a moment. If we could place Marcus Webb, or whatever his real name is, in the area at the time of the robbery, or if we could find someone who's seen him recently, or better yet, if we could prove he has a history of this specific crime pattern, in a way that directly connects to your grandson's case. Karen leaned forward. What if we could get someone inside the storage unit legally? Someone with permission? Morrison raised an eyebrow. How would you do that? If the rental agreement is in the name Michael Warren, and if we could find the real Michael Warren and prove this Marcus person stole his identity, then the real Michael Warren could authorize access to the unit. That's creative, but it's a long shot. You'd have to find this Michael Warren and prove identity theft. I remembered the arrest record I'd found. The booking photo from 3 years ago. It lists his address at that time. Maybe the real Michael Warren lived there. Maybe Marcus stole his information. Morrison wrote something down. It's worth checking. I'll have someone look into it. She gathered up the documents. Mrs. Fletcher, I can't promise anything, but I'll look into this. If there's really a pattern here, if this Marcus Webb has been doing this to multiple people, that's something we need to investigate. Tyler's court date is in 2.5 weeks. I understand. I'll work as fast as I can. We left the courthouse and stood on the steps in the cold morning air. Karen turned to me. You did good in there. Morrison's going to follow up. I can tell. But will she do it in time? I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep digging. There's got to be something else we can find. I drove home feeling like I'd run a marathon. Every lead felt like climbing a mountain, only to find another mountain behind it. But I couldn't stop. Not now. That evening Sarah called. Mom, Tyler called me from jail. He sounded awful. He said there's a hearing tomorrow about the plea deal. The public defender is pushing hard for him to take it. Tell her we need more time. I tried. She says the offer expires Wednesday. After that, Tyler goes to trial and faces the maximum sentence. Wednesday. 2 days away. I hung up and stared at my kitchen wall. 2 days to find something. Anything. I thought about that storage unit. About what might be inside. Evidence from 5 years of setups. Stolen property. Maybe even records of what Marcus had done. And then I thought about Tyler, 17 years old. Sitting in jail with a bruise on his face, terrified and alone. I picked up my phone and called Karen. I need to get into that storage unit. Now. Before Wednesday. Diane, we can't. Not legally. Then we need to find another way. There was a long pause. Then Karen said, let me make some calls. Don't do anything until you hear from me. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by documents and waited. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight. Tomorrow was Tuesday. Wednesday was the deadline. Somewhere out there Marcus Webb was free. And Tyler was in jail. The clock kept ticking. Karen called at 7 Tuesday morning. I'd been awake for hours, sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee and my notebook. I have something, she said. The real Michael Warren. He lives 2 hours north. Never knew his identity was stolen. He's willing to talk to us. When? Now. Can you meet me at my office in 20 minutes? I was there in 15. Michael Warren was on speakerphone when I arrived. Karen had already explained the situation to him. He sounded angry. I had no idea someone was using my name. How is that even possible? Did you ever lose your wallet? Have mail stolen? Apply for something online? Karen asked. I had my car broken into about 4 years ago. My registration was in the glove box with my address on it. Insurance card too. I filed a police report but nothing was ever recovered. That's probably when he got your information. I said. He's been using your identity ever since. And now some kid is in jail because of it? That's insane. Karen leaned toward the phone. Michael, we need your help. There's a storage unit rented under your name. We believe it contains evidence that could free this boy and prove this Marcus person has been setting people up for years. Would you be willing to go to the storage facility and authorize access? Absolutely. When? Today. As soon as possible. We met Michael Warren at the storage facility at noon. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with the same build as Marcus. Easy to see how Marcus could have used his information. Similar enough that a quick glance at an ID would look right. The storage facility manager was a different person than I'd talked to before. A man in his 30s with a name tag that said Steve. Karen did the talking. This is Michael Warren. He rents Unit 237, but he's been overseas for work. He needs to access his unit, but he's lost his keys. Steve checked the computer. I'll need to see ID. Michael handed over his driver's license. The real one. Steve compared it to the computer screen, nodded, and pulled out a pair of bolt cutters. We'll have to cut the lock off. You'll need to purchase a new one before you leave. That's fine, Michael said. We walked back to Unit 237. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Steve cut the lock, pulled open the door, and stepped back. Take your time. I'll be in the office when you're ready to get a new lock. He walked away. The three of us stood there staring into the unit. It was packed. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. Plastic bins. Garbage bags full of something. A rack of clothes along one wall. Electronics piled on shelves. Holy hell, Michael whispered. Karen pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. I stepped inside carefully. The unit smelled like dust and something chemical I couldn't identify. I opened the nearest box. Inside were wallets. Dozens of them. Men's wallets, women's wallets, all different styles and colors. Karen, look at this. She came over, still filming. Don't touch anything else. This is a crime scene. But I'd already seen what I needed to see. In one of the plastic bins near the back was Tyler's black jacket. The one he'd left at the library. The one Marcus had worn to rob that convenience store. And next to it a handgun. Black metal, small enough to fit in a jacket pocket. We need to call Detective Morrison, I said. Right now. Morrison arrived with two other detectives and a crime scene unit 30 minutes later. They photographed everything, bagged evidence, took statements from Michael, Karen, and me. The storage unit became an official crime scene. Yellow tape across the door. Morrison pulled me aside while her team worked. Mrs. Fletcher, this is good. Very good. We've got stolen property, weapons, identification documents from at least 20 different people. This is exactly what we needed. Will it free Tyler? I'm calling the DA's office right now. With this evidence, they'll have to reopen the case. But I need you to understand this isn't instant. There's a process. His plea deadline is tomorrow. I know. I'm going to push for an emergency hearing. Get the judge to delay everything until we can sort through this evidence. She looked back at the storage unit. You did incredible work here. Really incredible. I didn't feel incredible. I felt exhausted and terrified and desperate. Just get him out. Please. That evening, Sarah and I sat in her apartment waiting for news. Morrison had promised to call as soon as she knew anything. The public defender had already called 3 times, pressuring Tyler to take the plea before the deadline. Don't let him sign anything, I told Sarah. Not until we hear from Morrison. At 8 p.m. my phone rang. Morrison. I got the emergency hearing. Tomorrow morning 10 a.m. The judge is going to review the new evidence. The DA's office is sending someone. They're not happy, but they're coming. Will Tyler be there? Yes. They're transporting him from the jail. I barely slept that night. Kept thinking about that storage unit. About all those wallets, all those identities. How many people had Marcus destroyed? How many lives had he ruined? And how many had taken plea deals or been convicted before anyone noticed the pattern? Wednesday morning. Sarah and I arrived at the courthouse an hour early. Karen met us outside. Morrison called me. They've been processing evidence all night. The gun from the storage unit matches the one used in the robbery. And they found Marcus's fingerprints on it, not just Tyler's. How is that possible? Tyler's fingerprints were on it too. Transfer. Marcus handled the gun first, then put it in that camera equipment case and had Tyler move it. Tyler's prints went on top of Marcus's. The crime lab was only looking for identifying prints, found Tyler's and stopped there. Didn't look deeper. My hands were shaking. So they can prove Marcus set him up? They can prove Marcus had the gun. They can prove he had Tyler's jacket. Combined with the pattern we documented, it's enough to create reasonable doubt. More than enough. The hearing started at 10. Tyler was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. When he saw us, his eyes filled with tears. I wanted to run to him, but the bailiff blocked the way. The judge was the same woman from Tyler's original arraignment. She read through the motion, listened to Morrison present the new evidence, and heard from the assistant district attorney, a nervous-looking woman who clearly hadn't been prepared for this. Your Honor, while this new evidence is certainly concerning, the defendant already entered a plea. The plea hasn't been finalized, the judge said, and this court has an obligation to ensure justice is served. Detective Morrison, you're saying this Marcus Webb, also known as Michael Warren, has been setting up young people for crimes he committed? Morrison stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've documented at least 5 cases over the past 5 years with the same pattern. The defendant, Tyler Fletcher, fits that pattern exactly. The gun and jacket used in the robbery were found in a storage unit rented by the suspect. The defendant has a solid alibi for the time of the crime. And the 2 witnesses who implicated him have since recanted their statements. I hadn't known about that last part. Sarah grabbed my hand. The judge looked at the assistant DA. Why wasn't this investigated more thoroughly before charges were filed? Your Honor, we had video evidence, physical evidence, and witness statements. At the time, the case appeared straightforward. Appeared being the operative word. The judge flipped through more documents. Then she looked at Tyler. Mr. Fletcher approached the bench. Tyler stood, walked forward with the bailiff beside him. He looked so young standing there. So scared. Mr. Fletcher, do you understand what's happening here? I think so, Your Honor. Based on the evidence presented today, I'm vacating your guilty plea. The charges against you are being dismissed pending further investigation. You're free to go. The courtroom was silent for a moment. Then Tyler turned to look at us, his face blank with shock. Did she just... Am I? You're free, the judge said. Bailiff, remove the defendant's restraints. Sarah was crying. Karen was smiling. I just sat there watching them uncuff Tyler, watching him walk toward us, watching him become free. He reached us and Sarah pulled him into a hug, sobbing. Then he turned to me. Grandma, you did this. You actually did this. I stood up and hugged him tight. You're coming home. Tyler came home that afternoon. Sarah wanted to throw a party, invite everyone, celebrate. But Tyler asked if we could just be the 3 of us. So we ordered pizza and sat in Sarah's small living room. And for the first time in weeks, Tyler smiled. I can't believe I'm really out, he said, eating his 3rd slice. I kept thinking I'd wake up and still be in that cell. You're never going back there, Sarah said. She hadn't stopped touching him since we left the courthouse. His arm, his shoulder, his hand. Like she needed to keep confirming he was real. But I could see the shadows in Tyler's eyes. The way he startled when a car door slammed outside. The way he sat with his back to the wall watching the door. 3 weeks in jail had marked him. It would take time for those marks to fade. What happens now? Tyler asked. With Marcus, I mean. Detective Morrison is building a case, I said. They're going through everything in that storage unit, connecting him to other crimes. She thinks they'll find him within a few days. What if they don't? That was the question I'd been trying not to think about. Marcus had disappeared before multiple times. He was good at it. He could be anywhere by now, using another fake name, setting up another victim. They'll find him, I said, with more confidence than I felt. The next morning I went back to the library. Needed to return the documents I'd borrowed from Mr. Patterson's office. He was waiting for me when I arrived. Diane, I heard about Tyler. I'm so relieved. Thank you for the help. Without those application documents, I never would have tracked Marcus down. He looked uncomfortable. I feel terrible. I brought him here. I gave him access. I trusted him. He fooled everyone, Robert. That's what he does. Still, I should have seen something. Should have known. I thought about that. About how Marcus had seemed like such a perfect volunteer. Polite, hardworking, punctual. Exactly the kind of person any organization would want. That was his skill. Blending in. Becoming trustworthy. Have you heard from him at all? I asked. No. He hasn't called or contacted the library since he left that voicemail about being sick. Mr. Patterson pulled out his phone. Actually, let me play it for you. Maybe you'll hear something I didn't. He pressed play. Marcus's voice came through the speaker, smooth and casual. Hey, Mr. Patterson, it's Marcus. I'm not feeling well today. Probably won't make it in for my shift. Sorry about the short notice. I'll call you in a few days when I'm feeling better. Something in the background of the message caught my attention. A sound I recognized but couldn't quite place. Can you play that again? He did. I listened carefully. There it was. An announcement over a loudspeaker, muffled and distant but distinct. That sounds like an airport, I said. Mr. Patterson's eyes widened. You're right. It does. I pulled out my phone and called Karen. Told her about the voicemail, about the airport announcement in the background. Can you forward me that recording? She asked. I have a contact who might be able to identify which airport based on the announcement pattern. Mr. Patterson sent the file. 3 hours later, Karen called back. It's the regional airport, about 40 minutes from here. And I have more news. Morrison got credit card records for one of Marcus's aliases. There's a charge at a hotel near the airport from last Wednesday, the day after the robbery. Is he still there? Morrison's sending units now. I'll call you when I know more. I sat in my car outside the library, hands gripping the steering wheel, waiting. Sarah called to check on Tyler. He was sleeping, she said. First real sleep he'd had in weeks. I told her about the airport, about the hotel. Mom, maybe you should go home. Let the police handle it from here. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew Marcus was caught. Karen called an hour later. They found the hotel room. He checked out yesterday morning, but the housekeeping staff hadn't cleaned it yet. Morrison's team is processing it now. Did they find anything? Still going through it, but Diane, they found a laptop. If they can get into it, they'll have everything. Every identity he's used, every person he's targeted, everything. How long will that take? Could be hours, could be days. Depends on his security. I drove home as the sun was setting. Sat at my kitchen table with all my notebooks still spread out. 5 years of Marcus's pattern documented in my handwriting. Names, dates, descriptions. The work that had freed Tyler. But it wasn't finished. Marcus was still out there. And as long as he was free, he could do this to someone else. My phone rang at 9 p.m. Morrison. Mrs. Fletcher, we got into the laptop. You were right about everything. He's been running this scam for 7 years, not 5. 17 victims total that we can identify. Some took plea deals. Some are still in prison. We're working to get them all reviewed. 17 people. 17 lives destroyed. Did you find Marcus? Not yet. But we have his real name now. Derek Sullivan. Grew up in foster care. Aged out of the system at 18. Has been running cons ever since. We've issued a warrant. We'll find him. After we hung up, I thought about Derek Sullivan. About what kind of person spends 7 years deliberately destroying innocent people's lives. What had happened to him to make him like this? But then I thought about Tyler's face in that jail. About the other 16 victims. About how many of them were still locked up, still serving time for crimes they didn't commit. Whatever had happened to Derek Sullivan, it didn't excuse what he'd done. Thursday morning, I met with Jordan Kim, the young attorney Karen had mentioned weeks ago. He'd heard about Tyler's case and wanted to help with the other victims. This is going to be my focus now, he said. We were in his small office, walls covered with case files. Getting these convictions overturned. Some of these people have been locked up for years. They deserve justice. How long will it take? Months, maybe longer. Each case has to be reviewed individually. But with the evidence from the storage unit and the laptop, we have a strong foundation. He looked at me across his desk. Mrs. Fletcher, what you did was remarkable. You built a case that professional investigators missed. I just asked questions. Paid attention to patterns. That's exactly what investigators are supposed to do. But most people don't. They see one case in isolation and miss the bigger picture. He pulled out a folder. I wanted to ask your help with something. Would you be willing to consult on these cases? Walk me through how you documented everything. Your methodology could help us with other pattern-based wrongful convictions. I thought about going back to retirement, back to crossword puzzles and gardening, back to the quiet life I'd had before Tyler's arrest. But I thought about those 17 victims, about how many more might be out there that we hadn't found yet. Yes, I said. I'll help. That afternoon, Tyler came to visit me. First time he'd been to my house since before his arrest. He stood in the doorway of my kitchen, looking at all the documents still covering my table. "Is this everything you did to find him?" "Most of it." He walked over, picked up one of my notebooks, flipped through the pages slowly. "I'm reading all of this stuff about criminal justice reform in my online classes, about wrongful convictions and systemic problems, and I keep thinking about what happened to me, how close I came to spending 10 years in prison for something I didn't do." He set down the notebook and looked at me. "I want to study law, Grandma. I want to help people like the ones on these pages, the ones who don't have someone fighting for them." My throat went tight. "You'd be good at it. I learned from the best." We stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of months of work. The work that had saved him. The work that would hopefully save others. "Grandma, thank you. For believing me. For never giving up. You're my grandson. Where else would I be?" Derek Sullivan was arrested 6 days later at a bus station in Nevada. He'd been using another fake name, had another fake ID, was probably on his way to another city to find another victim. Detective Morrison called me with the news on a Friday afternoon. "We got him. He's being extradited back here. Should arrive early next week." I sat down at my kitchen table, feeling something release in my chest that I hadn't realized I'd been holding on to. "Thank you for calling. Mrs. Fletcher, I want you to know, we're reopening all 17 cases. Every single person Derek Sullivan set up is going to get their day in court. Because of you." After we hung up, I called Sarah, then Karen, then Jordan Kim. The news spread quickly. By evening, Tyler showed up at my door with Sarah. "Is it really over?" Tyler asked. "The investigation part is. Now comes the legal process. Getting everyone's convictions overturned. Building the case against Derek. That'll take months. But he can't hurt anyone else." "No. He can't." We ordered Chinese food and ate it in my living room. Tyler talked about his online classes, about getting his GED since he'd missed so much school, about maybe starting at community college in the fall. "Mr. Patterson called me," he said. "Asked if I wanted to volunteer at the library again. Help with the teen reading program. Are you going to do it?" "I think so. I mean, the library was where everything went wrong, but it was also where you figured everything out. Where you found the clues that saved me." He picked at his orange chicken. "I don't want to be afraid of it forever." Sarah squeezed his shoulder. "I'm proud of you." After they left, I sat alone in the quiet house. The documents were still spread across my kitchen table. I'd meant to put them away a dozen times but hadn't been able to yet. They represented something. Not just Tyler's case, but a purpose I'd forgotten I could have. Jordan Kim had asked me to consult on the other cases. Help review evidence, look for patterns, apply the same methodology I'd used with Tyler. Part of me wanted to say no. Wanted to go back to retirement, to safety, to the quiet life. But I kept thinking about those 17 people. How many of them had grandmothers or mothers or someone who believed they were innocent, but didn't know how to prove it? How many had given up hope? I pulled out a fresh notebook and wrote a name at the top of the first page. Ashley Morrison. The first case Karen had found. A girl serving 8 years for drug possession. Claimed her boyfriend had planted drugs in her car. I could help her. I knew I could. Monday morning, Derek Sullivan arrived back in town. I didn't go to see him. Didn't want to. But the news covered it. Showed footage of him being walked into the courthouse in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. He looked different than I'd expected. Smaller. More ordinary. That was the thing about people like him. They looked normal. That's how they got away with it for so long. The arraignment was set for Wednesday. This time I did go. Sat in the back of the courtroom with Sarah and Tyler. Watched Derek Sullivan stand before the judge as they read the charges. 17 counts of fraud. Multiple counts of theft. Evidence tampering. Conspiracy. His lawyer tried to argue for bail. The prosecutor stood up and presented the pattern. 7 years of targeting vulnerable young people. 7 years of destroying lives. The judge denied bail. The defendant has demonstrated a clear pattern of flight risk and poses a danger to the community. He'll remain in custody pending trial. As they led Derek away, he looked back at the courtroom. His eyes swept across the audience and landed on me for just a second. Did he know who I was? Did he know I was the one who'd unraveled everything he'd built? I stared back at him. Didn't look away. Let him see that he'd been caught by a 72-year-old grandmother who refused to believe her grandson was guilty. Then he was gone and it was really over. Outside the courthouse, a reporter approached us. She'd been covering Tyler's case since the dismissal. "Mrs. Fletcher, can I ask you a few questions?" I was about to say no, but Jordan Kim appeared beside me. "Actually, I think you should," he said quietly. "The other victims deserve to know someone's fighting for them." So I talked to the reporter, explained how I documented the pattern, how I'd connected the cases, how 5 years of the same setup with different names had finally been exposed. "What made you keep going?" she asked. "When everyone else had given up?" I thought about Tyler in that jail cell, about Sophie in the document I'd read, fighting for her freedom, about all the grandmothers and mothers and fathers who'd been told their children were guilty when they knew in their hearts they weren't. "Because someone had to believe him," I said. "Someone had to do the work." The story ran that evening. By the next morning, my phone was ringing constantly. Other families who thought their loved ones had been wrongly convicted. Defense attorneys looking for advice. Advocacy groups wanting to know my methodology. Karen helped me set up a system. A spreadsheet for tracking calls. Criteria for which cases might be worth investigating. A process for documenting everything. "You're building something here," she said. We were in my kitchen, now converted into a makeshift office. An actual investigative framework for wrongful convictions. I'm just doing what librarians do. Research. Documentation. Finding patterns in information. You're doing more than that. You're giving people hope. By the end of the month, Jordan and I had identified 3 more cases worth investigating. Young people serving time for crimes they swore they didn't commit. Stories that sounded too familiar. Patterns that needed someone to notice them. Tyler started at community college in January, taking criminal justice classes. He'd come over twice a week and we'd work together. Him studying case law, me reviewing evidence for Jordan's cases. Sometimes Sarah would join us bringing dinner, and the 3 of us would sit around my kitchen table like we had when Tyler was little, and I'd help him with his homework. One evening in February, Tyler looked up from his textbook. "Grandma, do you ever think about how different things would be if you hadn't started asking questions? If you just accepted that I was guilty like everyone else did?" I thought about it. About the sliding door moments where everything could have gone differently. If I hadn't helped Crystal with those books in the prison library. If I hadn't noticed the pattern. If I'd given up when the first lawyer said no. "I think about it," I said. "But I couldn't have stopped. You were innocent. Someone had to prove it. 17 other people were innocent too. And nobody proved it for them until you did. We're proving it now. That's what matters." He smiled. "We're a good team." We are. Outside, winter was turning into spring. The trees in my yard were starting to bud. Life continuing forward the way it always did. Inside my kitchen, surrounded by case files and legal documents, I felt something I hadn't felt in the 2 years since I'd retired. Purpose. The same purpose I'd felt in law school before I'd had to drop out. The same purpose I'd tried to find in the prison library for 30 years. I'd spent decades helping people find information. Now I was helping them find justice. And I was just getting started. Derek Sullivan's trial began in late April. The prosecution had built their case over 4 months, and it was overwhelming. The laptop evidence alone showed 7 years of planning and execution. Fake identities, stolen property, documentation of which victims would be easiest to frame. I sat in the courtroom every day of that 2-week trial. So did Tyler and Sarah. So did 3 of the other victims whose convictions had already been overturned. We sat together in the back rows, a silent reminder of what Derek had destroyed. The defense tried to argue that Derek was just a petty thief, that he'd never intended for anyone to go to prison. But the evidence said otherwise. The laptop showed searches for vulnerable young people, notes about who had weak family support systems, who would be easy to manipulate. He'd chosen his victims carefully. Tyler because he was quiet and didn't have a father in his life. Ashley Morrison because she'd aged out of foster care and had no one. Derek Chun, because he was struggling with addiction and seemed like an easy target. On the 8th day of trial, the prosecution called me to the stand. Mrs. Fletcher, can you explain how you first became aware of the pattern in these cases? I told them about the library, about asking questions, about documenting everything in my notebooks, about refusing to accept that my grandson was guilty when every instinct told me he was innocent. And how many hours would you estimate you spent investigating this case? I thought about all those Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, all those Saturday visits, all those late nights at my kitchen table connecting dots. Over 1,000 hours. Maybe more. Why did you persist when professionals had already concluded your grandson was guilty? I looked at Derek Sullivan. He was staring at the table in front of him, not meeting anyone's eyes. Because I knew Tyler. I'd raised him. I knew he wasn't capable of armed robbery. And when I started looking deeper, I realized he wasn't the only one. There were others with the same story. Someone needed to notice. Someone needed to care enough to do the work. The defense attorney tried to discredit me on cross-examination. Asked if I had any law enforcement experience, any formal investigative training, any legal credentials. No, I said. I'm a retired librarian. So you have no expertise in criminal investigation? I have 35 years of expertise in research and pattern recognition. I know how to find information that others miss. I know how to document evidence systematically. And I know how to be thorough. He tried a few more questions, but I could see he wasn't getting anywhere. The jury was listening to me. They understood what I'd done and why I'd done it. The verdict came back on a Friday afternoon. Guilty on all counts. 17 counts of fraud, 15 counts of evidence tampering, 12 counts of conspiracy, and multiple theft charges. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later. At the sentencing hearing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. Ashley Morrison went first. She talked about losing 4 years of her life, about missing her little sister's high school graduation while she was in prison for a crime she didn't commit. Derek Chun talked about his addiction getting worse in prison, about how he'd been clean for 6 months before his arrest, but the trauma of being locked up had sent him spiraling. Then it was Tyler's turn. He walked to the front of the courtroom, and I could see his hands shaking. But his voice was steady. I spent 3 weeks in jail. Only 3 weeks. But it was enough to change me. To show me how fast your life can be destroyed when no one believes you. I'm one of the lucky ones because I had my grandmother. She fought for me when everyone else had given up. He looked at Derek Sullivan. You tried to take my life from me. You almost succeeded. But you failed. And now 17 people know the truth because she wouldn't let you win. The judge sentenced Derek Sullivan to 35 years in prison, more than any of his victims had served combined. He'd be 70 years old before he was eligible for parole. As they led him away, I felt Sarah take my hand on one side and Tyler take my other hand. We sat there together, the three of us, until the courtroom emptied. Outside, reporters wanted statements. Jordan Kim handled most of them, but one reporter asked me directly, Mrs. Fletcher, what's next for you? I thought about the 3 new cases on my kitchen table, about the families who'd called asking for help, about all the people still sitting in prison who might be innocent. There's more work to do, I said. A lot more. 3 months later, Ashley Morrison walked out of prison. Her conviction had been overturned. She stood on those front steps crying while her little sister, now 19, hugged her tight. I was there to see it. So was Jordan Kim. So was Tyler, who'd driven up with me that morning. That's number 8, Jordan said. 8 convictions overturned. 9 more to go. We'll get them all, I said. Tyler started at a 4-year university that fall, majoring in criminal justice. He decided he wanted to be a defense attorney, help people who couldn't help themselves, fight for the ones everyone else had forgotten. He came to visit every Sunday. We'd have dinner, and then we'd sit at my kitchen table working. Him studying case law, me reviewing evidence for Jordan's investigations, teaching each other what we'd learned. One Sunday in October, almost a year after his arrest, Tyler brought someone with him. A girl from his criminology class named Maya. She was studying to be a paralegal. Grandma, Maya wants to volunteer with Jordan's project. I told her you'd be the best person to train her. So I did. Taught her how to document evidence, how to spot patterns, how to be thorough and patient and refuse to give up. By December, we'd overturned 10 convictions. Jordan had hired 2 more attorneys. We'd established a formal nonprofit organization called the Pattern Project, dedicated to investigating wrongful convictions through systematic documentation and analysis. I was named the Director of Investigations. At 73 years old, I had a job title and a purpose in work that mattered more than anything I'd ever done. On Christmas Eve, my kitchen was full. Tyler and Sarah, Jordan and his wife, Karen and 2 of the freed victims who'd become volunteers, Maya and 3 law students she'd recruited. We ate lasagna and talked about the cases we were working on and the people we were trying to help. Speech, someone called out. I stood up looking around at all these people. This community we'd built from one grandmother's refusal to give up. A year ago, my grandson was in jail and I was terrified. I didn't know if I could help him. Didn't know if anything I did would matter. But I did the only thing I knew how to do. I asked questions. I paid attention. I documented everything. I looked at Tyler. And it worked. Not because I'm special, but because I refused to accept that an innocent person should suffer. That's what we all do here. We refuse to accept injustice. We do the work. They raised their glasses. To doing the work. To refusing to give up. To second chances. Late that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat at my kitchen table with my original notebook. The one where I documented Tyler's case. The one that started everything. I turned to the last page and wrote one final entry. December 24th. 1 year since Tyler's release. 10 convictions overturned. 7 more in progress. 17 families have their loved ones back or soon will. This is what's possible when someone cares enough to look for the truth. This is what's possible when you refuse to stop asking questions. The work continues. I closed the notebook and put it on the shelf with the others. 14 notebooks now, full of names and dates and patterns and evidence. Full of proof that one person paying attention could change everything. Outside, snow was starting to fall. Inside, my kitchen was warm and full of the echoes of laughter and conversation. Full of life and purpose and hope. I'd spent 40 years helping people find books and information. Now I was helping them find freedom. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be.